and we are visited by the spookiest thing ever. Like, I'm sorry, Halloween was 2 weeks ago. What do you mean we're seeing these CGI hands once more? Mahalo and welcome back to You and Idol, episode 40, where we start off with a cute little note. Kokoro has now made these little, I forget what the term is. There's an actual term for these little plushie keychains, I believe. But she made them for everybody. They're super adorable. Buy the merch. That's basically how we open the episode, is purchase the merch, people. These keychains have been here actually forever, and you guys haven't purchased them yet? Weak. I also noticed in this episode, because I just didn't pick on it before, like, Metadon is much taller than the rest of the girls. I also assume Puridun as well. I know that they're older and everything, but, like, it's very interesting to think about it, because I just don't imagine Metadon being taller than Nana, but here she is, being much taller than Nana. Just a little note. Now, this episode falls into a trope that I've personally seen a bunch, so it wasn't, like, super earth-shattering for me. Where we've had a lot of series that do the whole, like, we're in the final episodes, one of the characters is about to get an offer abroad, and they have to make the decision on what they're going to choose. The group or their future. And I've got opinions on this particular thing, but also this episode is going to kind of fit in that pocket of being incredibly predictable. Nonetheless, we go to the mythical land of France to go visit her mother, who is performing. I do like that they put a little bit of effort into the backgrounds for France. They're like, by the way, did you know France has these really tight buildings all smushed together and these silly little cobblestone streets? Did you know? Did you know? Well, I guess it's specifically Paris, but did you know? Look at it. It's different. It's not Japan. I imagine they probably took, like, photos and drew on top of them. France also seems to be a very popular topic once again lately. But again, maybe it's just my bias. I ended up watching The Summer I Turned Pretty, which for no reason concluded in Paris. Don't ask me why. Nonetheless, we ultimately catch the concert that her mom is performing at, and we are visited by the spookiest thing ever. Like, I'm sorry, Halloween was 2 weeks ago. What do you mean we're seeing these CGI hands once more? At least she did her nails up. Pop off, queen. And we get this little moment where we get to spend time with Nana's mother. Which I give it that other Precure seasons that have done something similar to this usually have the mom visit our characters. And this time, the characters visit the mom. We go out of the country to do a little visit. I think that's the most unique thing that occurs in this particular flavor of the storyline. But otherwise, again, it's the box standard travel, invitation to a new country, and division storyline. I do like this moment that we have with her mom, though, where her mom explains what it was like coming to France in the first place. And we have a bit of a heart-to-heart. I also like that she explains that despite being a professional, she still takes regular piano lessons and continues to improve her skills. I think this is just a nice thing to note in general, and is a true thing, that just because you've reached professional level doesn't mean you just stop. You always can continue to practice, and you can still have older mentors, or just, you could have a younger mentor that helps you keep up your skill set. I think that was just a nice little anecdote to throw in there. Nana then proceeds to be like, hey mom, I've still kept up my piano even though we haven't seen much of it in the main series, but she shows her mom that she's still very passionate about it. And while the hand animation is terrifying, we do have some nice head animation as she plays, which I enjoyed. We also get this sweet little moment where we get an alternative hairstyle, we get to see her hair down, and she has a heart-to-heart with her mother, who is about to drop the offer, which I've hinted at multiple times here. But she is like, hey Nana, what if you and your dad just stayed here? What if you just stayed in this country with me? She goes on to talk about how she originally wasn't sure about coming to France and it kind of stressed her out, but her family members encouraged her, especially Nana, who explained that, like, hearing you play piano is such a wonderful experience for me. Other people should also have this wonderful experience. And they bring up this motif that gets brought up a couple times in the episode of, like, playing is synonymous with like the idea of producing a color. Like your music is like a color that shines. Like one color in Nana's case would be like blue. And they talk about this metaphor a couple times and it ends up being more relevant towards the end. But it's also not, I do like that, for at least the way they handled the storyline, they give it a little bit more nuance than other storylines do, because you do have the mom be a little bit more vulnerable. I feel like typically moms in these type of storylines tend to just be like, I'm abroad and it's really cool and I bet you miss me, and they don't have much character to them. I like that Nana's mom was like, I wasn't sure about leaving. I actually was kind of hesitant about leaving you and your father behind. I feel like I do like that this has more weight to it than other ones do. Because so many of these plot lines are usually like, especially, I'm thinking of Kira off the top of my head, where Ichika just had to like constantly make peace with the fact that her mom travels all the time. And her mom just was like, I like to travel all the time. And that's all her mom was. I much prefer the nuance that we have here, where the mom is like, I kind of had regrets leaving my family behind, but I was encouraged by my family to pursue what mattered to me. But that's also why the mom offers to be like, hey, Nana, you could just move to France alongside your dad. And now we've got to break the news to the group. And I like the contrast in colors they use here, because you definitely see like Nana in this like late night sad like blue area. Like they take advantage of her color being blue here while she also drops the news, compared to again the vibrant background we see of the girls, who are obviously, because of the time change, probably in the middle of the day. But she breaks the news to them that she could potentially move to France and is getting the girls' opinion on it, of which most of them are all like, no. Or like, we don't like that. That makes us sad. I really, really like this one particular moment in this episode where Metatron has her reaction, where she's like putting on a brave front and being like, it's fine. I love the mannerism of her tapping her hand and trying to putting on this brave front. Like, I feel like, again, the reaction that you have of the other three is just really typical. They're like, no, we don't want you to leave. It's really upsetting. Of course we love you. And there's always going to be characters that behave that way, but I just like the nuance of Metatron's reaction more, where she tries to do the more mature thing of being like, if it's what you want, then I'll support it. But then she's super bummed out about it. Like, outside of Puridun, the next closest person she is to is Nana. She even reflects on the time that she and Nana spent together. And she just, again, has the much more mature response, but also still feels the same way everybody else does. And then again, I just like the fact that we have these not main characters being friends and having these dynamics with one another independent of Uta. Honestly, I like how much this episode is independent of Uta. But that's just because I'm traumatized with main characters absolutely eclipsing all the other rest of the cast. This is just me trying to heal. That series for a long time now have been able to do that, but I always have to remind myself, because there are other seasons that would take, you know, maybe the Blue Cure's last plotline and be like, zoop, actually it's about me. I'm not gonna name any names, Doki Doki Precure. Nonetheless, Nana has a conversation with her father about the future. And while they do that, of course, we get this scenic vision of Paris. We see the Eiffel Tower, and we see most notably a rainbow. And then, you know, we drop in the little conversation about you gotta figure out what you do with your color. It's all about your color, but what color do we see here? Multiple. It's a rainbow. That might be symbolism. But this helps Nana come up with a resolve. I like that her dad's relevant. Like, she's had a dad, he's been there. Technically speaking, he's had more screen time than the mom, but he's also somebody who's supportive and helping Nana make the decision, because obviously the mom is biased and wants her daughter to come with her. But they give him a bit of a role. I think, honestly, the parents don't give us a lot, but they're a lot more active than most are. Especially when it's talking about two parents. Heaven forbid a series ever have two parents do things. It's usually one. But Nana takes her resolve and then goes to confront her mom about it, letting her know what her decision is. And what exactly is that decision? We'll find out after a time skip. We are back to present day, implying that what just happened was a little bit time ago. So it's the time, you know, timey-wimey stuff's happening. And we break the news that Nana might be graduating. I feel like this is something I should have predicted. Them doing this whole plotline was honestly a roundabout way to explain the concept of graduation. I wonder if we'll revisit the idea of graduation at the end of the show, because I'm sure the show's going to have some kind of farewell and reunion that a lot of shows tend to have, just to like drive up drama at the very end of the show so we can end on a much more happy note than when everybody's miraculously united. But yes, we talk about the idea of graduation, which is the idol term for when an idol quits in the agency or stops being part of a group for whatever reason. They have the fancy concept of graduation, that's just the term they chose to use. But we kind of brushed past that because I'm sure graduation will be a more relevant term later, and instead, we have a fight. We have our monster of the week. We gotta go. And the general of the week is Jogi. I do like that they throw this in here. When Uta runs up to, like, get in the fight, she calls him Kazuma, and he's like, don't call me that. He's like, don't be so familiar with me. It was pretty funny. I feel like one of the things that Precure has done historically, I think they've changed this up in most recent seasons. I think Hiroguru, Sky, and On, they've changed this rule. But historically, if a person is in a certain form, you only ever refer to them by that form's name and you don't really call them by any other name. Cures will always, like, refer to the other cures as their cure names, and they won't call them what their human name is, regardless of how, like, dire a situation gets. They've only recently changed doing that. And so I do think that's funny that they're calling him his regular name instead of just calling him his self-proclaimed name of Jogi, I imagine. In the meantime, it makes more sense that he was chosen to be the bad guy here rather than have Chokine, other than the fact that Nana has already, like, had her whole thing with Zakuri. It wouldn't make sense to have Chokine anyways. But Jogi, they parallel this to his own story of, like, feeling very ditched by Kaito, despite that not really being how it went, but he is sitting here being like, you guys are washed up because Nana's gone. You lost a member, she ditched you guys. Like, imagine what that's gotta be like, getting ditched. That's gotta suck. Like, you guys are so screwed now that you're down a person. He lays into them. And to be fair, there's no reason they should have lost. The battle this episode is kind of ridiculous because, honestly, I think after you see Kiss's attack, the monster looked fairly subdued, but then Zakun attacks it, and the monster's like, never mind, I'm actually back and I'm fine. I'm like, are you healing the thing? They genuinely did not seem like they were remotely having a hard time in the fight. The choreography of the first half of the fight was sad. They just shoved in all the stock footage of every team member, and then they were like, it didn't work, and they're like, oh, we're defeated. And I was like, but you weren't, though. Like, the monster was really taking hits, and then just felt like not taking hits anymore. The battle choreography continues to just get very, very lazy, in my opinion. Like, it definitely picks up hardcore for the second half of the fight, but the logic in these fights is so bad. And maybe they just turned their brain off because last season with Wonderful, since they had the chase sequences, they had to think a little bit harder about how the battles would go. This season, they're like, we're back to just punching, so we're just gonna throw a bunch of stock footage and then say the monster beat them anyways. There's no thought. There's no thoughts into these fights. And then, bum-ba-da-ba, Nana shows up in the outfit that she was in before. Did she teleport from France? Or is she just still wearing that one signature winter outfit that I guess she wears now? But real talk, the one thing that doesn't make sense for this, like, I'm sure there's, like, you know, again, the stuff that happened in France probably happened, like, a week before now when she got off the airplane or something. How did she get in our Delicious Field 2.0? Like, color me that. Because we established back in the date episode that anybody who sees on the outside the Delicious Field 2.0 happen, everybody involved zoops into a pocket dimension and fades from reality. So Nana, how did you find them? How did you get here? Like, I can excuse the logic of getting back from France, but I draw the line at Delicious Field 2.0. This is mostly just me hating the Delicious Field 2.0. Nonetheless, she hops into action. We get good Sakuga, which again, if they're gonna give us crappy Sakuga for the first half of the fight, they better do it when we have whoever the main character of the episode is be good, and it was. She fought really well. She also fought very well in the prior episode for no reason. She had good shield Sakuga last episode from like 3 or 4 shots. I think the animators just really like her because she also just had really good Sakuga here for this fight. She kicked butt, and she did a solo performance, which I majorly appreciate because I hate how repetitive the performances get. I really think they should mix them up more often. I don't think we should go 5-6 episodes in a row with the exact same performance, but whatever. And at this point, we don't know yet what she chose to do, but then she goes on a nice monologue about how much she wants to do a bunch of different things with the group, all the things that she hasn't been able to do, all of that being a very grandiose way to say, I'm staying. And then we get this closure for the fight where Jogi bitingly is like, what do you mean, reunion and like sticking together? That's not real. The team staying together isn't real. People being reliable isn't real. And like pouts off. We also have a very funny moment where Zakari is like, hey, that's that doofus who transformed me into an evil guy earlier in the season. I was like, yeah, we know. Jogi's been around for a while. We even got his real name. But like, it's always nice to know that they still have beef with him. And of course, Nana breaks the official news that she's staying, and Uta, being Uta, reacts in a very Uta way. We get to see the rest of the confrontation that she had with her mother about whether or not she was going to stay, and goes on this big explanation that she doesn't want to be one color, but she wants to be multicolored, and that she wants to stay with the friends that she's made. All of this surmising into the concept of Nana-iro, aka the Japanese word for rainbow. Now, Nana-iro is an interesting term for rainbow, where it's two words in one. Nana-iro means Nana, 7, Iro, color. And why is that? Because a rainbow has 7 colors. Which I think has always been an interesting thing, because I didn't really realize how many colors on average are considered to be in a rainbow until I learned the term Nana-iro. But also it comes full circle, because our main character's name is Nana, and she wants the 7 colors of the rainbow, and it's all about the colors. It's a joke. It's a good joke. It's a good pun. And then her being named Nana makes more sense, other than like the joke earlier with her, like the 7 wonders of the world, and her name is Nana, which means 7. Like, I think most all of the writing for her character was just consistently people at Toei being like, tee-hee-hee. Her name means 7. What if we made a 7 pun for her character episode? That'd be crazy. No one would see that coming. So that's the second time they've done that now, but good for her. And then we have this cheeky little moment at the end of the episode where her mom hears Kier Wink perform and is like, huh, that piece that she's playing is very similar to the one my daughter played, and then we'll never address that again. Like, this would be such a cool thing if they continued it, but with her mom being in France and the show being this close to being over, maybe she'll realize it in the last episode and be like, huh, Kier Wink is my daughter, and then move on. This would be so cool if this was an actual reveal. This would have been way cooler if this was a reveal and her mom was more relevant, but that's not the kind of show we have. Nonetheless, I've got a few more thoughts to drop with the conclusion of this episode, which is mostly not necessarily about this episode specifically, but my kind of exhaustion from this trope. Again, I've seen a lot of shows do this sort of trope where they put in an episode or they do an arc where one character is like, I must go abroad because my parents have like created some situation where I could have better education somewhere else. And then it amounts to them being like, no, my friends matter more, so I decide not to go to abroad. And I just want one of these ones to actually have them just go abroad. Like, it almost feels like a threat sometimes. Because every single time they choose their friends, which makes sense, the show about friendship and all, but sometimes, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, most of this beef comes from Love Live specifically. Spoilers for Love Live Season 1, but at the conclusion of Season 1, one character had the dream to be a fashion designer, and her mom was like, I got you hooked up with a school that you have high enough grades for abroad for fashion design. You could pursue your dream. And then instead of being like, oh, we're so sad that you're gonna go abroad and we're really sad about it, the characters got mad at her. They got so pissed that she was gonna study abroad, and then they just like gaslit her and like guilted her until she's like, actually guys, I didn't go abroad, I stayed here so we could pursue our idle dreams. And I've never forgiven it for that. Point blank. I've never forgiven Love Live for that. But yeah, it's when I see this plot line, it always reminds me of that. I'm like, I don't like this plot. I don't care for this plot line. It's overused in my opinion. I feel like there could be other things we do outside of it. That being said, was the way that they handled it with Nana good? Yes. I think this is probably one of the better instances I've seen this handled, in the sense that I feel like, again, her parents were far more relevant in the conversation. I feel like her logic for staying with her friends was sound. I feel like the other thing that happens in this is that they screw over their parents, because their parents will be like, I've already paid for tuition for your new school, and I've already, like, made sure we have a big enough place of residence for you to live in. And, I've paid for your plane tickets. God, heaven forbid the parents pay, like, the $1,000 plane tickets. And the kid's like, I decided to stay home at the last second. Ugh, it's the worst. I'm like, you guys are so mean to your parents. You guys are awful to your parents. You guys are lucky you have parents nice enough who just shook that off, because the audacity is so awful. But nonetheless, this was handled better than usual. I also, again, think this was just insanely predictable. This played out mostly the way I imagined it was going to play out. I was like, well, we're this close to the end of the season. Surely she's not going to leave. Or if she's going to leave, it will be the end of the season. When the girls, like, you know, go their separate ways or whatever. But either way, it's just a predictable kind of thing. And I think it was a good enough ending to Nana. It was a good enough episode, a good enough conclusion to the character of Nana, who overall I think has just been solid. She's a solid character. I don't think she's pulled any punches I didn't expect, or pulled a punch that I didn't expect that was worth remembering, to be honest. I'm sorry, the 7 Wonders of Nana was such a whatever kind of thing they did with her character. Otherwise, to me, she's just another blue. But that's all for her. What will happen with Kokoro? Next episode looks like it's doing a lot, and also so very little. We've seen not much about this episode, but we've gotten a very odd summary of events that are happening, so we'll see what punches they pull for Kokoro. We'll see if anything concludes next episode outside of her scope. I kind of hope Chokine would end on Kokoro. I feel like we had Cuddy, who was very connected to Idol, and we had Zakuri that was very connected to Wink. It would be nice if Chokine was connected to Kyun. It would just kind of make more sense, but again, we'll see. We'll see what they do. And until next time, bye-bye!